Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence, and today I want to talk about a film that I watched yesterday. Well, I rewatched it yesterday. In fact, I rewatched it yesterday for about the 30th time because I've watched this film many times, and that film, well, you already know what the name of the film is because it's in the title. It's Alan Partridge, Alpha Papa, right? It's yeah, it is one of my favourite films of all time. I have such high, taste, right? So if you, I'm going to assume that you know the character of Alan Partridge for this sort of video. If you're looking at a review of a film that's like 12 years old at this point, you kind of know what's going on. You're obviously a fan of the film and you want to see what other people have to say about it. So I'm going to spare you the basics, right? So I'll quickly do the synopsis, right? So the radio station, the Norfolk City Radio, whatever it's called, right? It's been taken over by this new conglomerate called Goredale Media, which is basically just, the evil corporate overlords essentially taking over, right? And they're rebranding to make things more modern and to try and target a new audience and that kind of thing, to try and stay relevant. It's that kind of corporate overtaking, right? And so what ends up happening is there's this guy called Pat Farrell, who's this quite old Irish broadcaster who's clearly been with the radio station for like 30, 40 years, right? And his days are numbered, right, at this station. Goredale Media want to get rid of him, right? And Alan Partridge also works at this radio station as a presenter. He's been there for probably about 20, 30 years at this point, right? And so one of them has to go, right? And so Alan ends up going up to the board meeting and he ends up throwing Pat Farrell under the bus in order to save his own career, right? Because one of them has to go, apparently. And Pat Farrell is already a bit like messed up in the head. Like anytime you sort of see him, you can tell he's clearly sad and sort of wallowing in his misery and his sorrow and stuff, right? Any scene that you see of him, like for instance, the scene where he goes into Alan's sort of cubicle thing, what are they called? Studio, that's it. While he's on a break and he pretends to be on the phone to a woman called Susan, and then the phone ends up ringing and he just goes along with it. One of the most brilliant, painful bits of cringe comedy that's been out there, right? It's so good. And it lasts the perfect amount of time, right? It's fantastic, right? And yeah, you can clearly see that Pat isn't like even able to sort of fight this and to cool Alan out on his shit. He just lets him get on with it, just gives up, right? Because he's that miserable and downbeat and downtrodden because he misses his wife at the end of the day, right? He likes the idea of growing old with someone. I think the reason that this film is one of my favorites is because it almost feels like the villain has the mindset that a hero should have, and the hero has a mindset that the villain should have, right? Pat ends up shooting up the Norfolk City Radio, right, and holding the Goredale Media people hostage and taking over the whole place with a shotgun, right? And he starts broadcasting on his own live from what they start calling the siege, right? And so yeah, he ends up saying to the police, I'm only going to talk to Alan Partridge and you need to send him in to talk to us in person. I do find this bit a wee bit unbelievable, but at the end of the day, I'm not entirely like bothered by it because I feel like you could just about explain it away. Anytime that there's a slight plot hole in this film or something that feels unbelievable, I feel like I can work my way around it. I can deal with it. It's not a big issue. It doesn't take me out of the film. It doesn't feel like they chose this out of laziness. They chose it because it was the best, most efficient way of telling the story. Right? So nothing feels completely out of place. And it's a great setup, Alan has to go in and sort of be hostage negotiator and is a radio presenter at the same time, right? From a radio station which is being held up by a mass shooter in a siege. Is that not a good concept? I think that's a good concept, right? So yeah, they spend the second act in the Norfolk City Radio during the siege, right? And Alan realizes that he can use this opportunity to bolster his career because this is an interesting kind of thing, and now he's broadcasting live and portraying his persona, right? So he's doing a great job of his career. He's appearing on BBC News, all sorts of stuff's going on, right? Where they go live from the siege. Here's Alan Partridge doing some stuff, right? So he's on top, he's loving it, and he wants to milk this for all it's worth, right? So see what I say about the hero having a villain's mentality. He's not interested in the hostages. He's outwardly not interested in the hostages. In fact, there's one part where he's on the phone to his assistant, Lynn. And Lynn sort of says, your first priority should be the safety of the hostages, right? And Alan says in response, oh, that's good. Put out a press release and tell them I said it, right? He doesn't give a shit about the hostages. And I love that. I love that he's not like on some kind of character arc to becoming a virtuous fucking person, right? What makes Alan so fun is the fact that he is such a terrible individual. He is not a nice person. His worldview is kind of fucked. And I wouldn't want his worldview to be solved. All of these kind of, like, for instance, Friends and stuff like that. By the end of Friends, everyone's a fucking angel because they've all gone through their character arcs where they sort out all their flaws. So I'm glad that Alan doesn't go through a character arc, right? We don't need that kind of thing anyway. The only change that really happens is he ends up getting with this woman. And it's not like they've put a load of effort into this sort of romantic B-plot. She makes a few appearances here and there and doesn't really interfere with the story. She's fine. She's not, I don't have a problem with it. I do find her a bit airy-fairy. Like, there's a bit where she's being freed from the hostage scene where she like takes her slipper and is like, oh, it's Cinderella's shoe. And she does shit like that. And it's like, Alan is constantly blowing her off, and I think like, yeah, I'd fucking blow you off as well if you were doing that. It's like, fuck off. Ooh, Cinderella's shoe, and all this sort of stuff. And there's one bit where she sort of goes like, she has this wispy sort of voice, like, and then I felt a moth and a sock upon the moor. Like that kind of thing. So she's kind of pretentious in a way that Alan isn't, right? So she's kind of his total opposite. So I find that quite fun and satisfying, and I do like their chemistry together because they have no chemistry together. That's what I like about it. I like the fact that Alan constantly blows her off. And I think my favourite scene in the film, which showcases Alan Partridge's mentality and his worldview, is a scene where him and Pat Farrell are going to bed, and they kind of have a bit of talk. And Pat asks Alan, you know, when you got to this age, where did you want to be in life? You know, and Alan says, when I wanted to get to this age, I wanted to have a big Range Rover, taking a speedboat. And he just ends it at that. Pure materialism, I love that, right? And then Pat says, you know, I just wanted to grow old with someone I loved. And that's a sweet, realistic thing that people want. That's a thing that good people want, not mass murderers, right? So that already is interesting, right? And then Alan goes on to tell this story about how he was at the beach with his kids, and the kids pull him over, and he's running along the beach with them, chasing them, and then they come to excitedly show Alan what they've done, right? And all they'd done, quote, was dig a big hole, right? And Pat says, that sounds lovely. And he's just like, yeah, it was annoying. Kids are a pain in the ass. They do stuff like that. And I just found that so good, so moving, because it's such an interesting like reversal of the usual way that these things go. Normally the villain is the one that has the materialistic, you know, non-virtuous kind of outlook, and the hero is the one that sees the best in people and wants all the great things that we're meant to want, like, you know, a family and kids and you know, making people around us happy and our community happy, all that sort of stuff that is known as being good, right? All of that is completely flipped, right? So now the villain wants all the nice things. Well, the villain at the end of the day, Pat just like wants to be with his wife who's died, right? It's a sad story and he's been pushed to the edge, right? He's not like a gun-toting maniac. I mean, obviously he does do some like bashing and stuff, but I think if you notice, he only ever bashes people that bashed him first, right? He never takes anything out on an innocent victim. And I suppose you could say the thing that he does with sidekick Simon is a bit fucked. In fact, it's like full on, almost out of a horror movie. He gets a sieve, right, with a handle. You know the kind of sieves that have the hole in the handle? And he puts it on his head, and he has a holster, like a stand. I think he takes a mic stand and he puts the shotgun on the mic stand through the little sieve holster. So it's basically, the gun is like right there, and it's just held, and he can just walk off and do whatever he wants. And there's one point where he says, You know, I can be walking around, I can walk around the studio, do whatever I want, and whenever I need, I don't even have to look. Dead, right? And Psychic Simon's acting, the actor who does it, he does such an amazing job of portraying the terror that comes through. Like any time that Pat approaches him, he freaks the fuck out, right? But not in like a overblown way where it seems like they're trying to make the point about him. Just like, for instance, there's one good one where the gun is against his head in the holster sort of sieve thing, right? And Pat wants to take the gun so that he can use it on someone else. So he needs to approach Psychic Simon and grab the gun, and as he's doing it, Psychic Simon just goes, no, in a proper shuddering sort of way like that. And I think he does an amazing job. I can't remember the name of the actor, I'm really sorry. But he does such a fantastic job of that kind of moment. There's one other bit where later, they're doing the radio show and Alan sort of says to Pat, shoot, I mean, start speaking, right? In that kind of way. And when he says shoot, right, Psychic Simon's eyes get fucked. And they're like, whoa, you can tell he's clearly getting PTSD like in real time. And I think that he does an amazing job of that. And it's a detail that doesn't need to be there. There's a lot of details in this film that don't need to be there. I think that's why I've watched it so many times, is that every time I see it, I notice another little sort of bit. For instance, now I'm noticing that, like, for instance, there's a little side plot where Pat makes all the people at Goredale Media make him new jingles, and the jingles are all like, oh yeah, Goredale Media fucked him over and now he's gonna get his revenge, that kind of thing. As a like happy dappy sort of sing-along tune, right? The kind of thing that they normally have as a radio jingle. They have that and they have to make that. I'm noticing in the background now of various shots, you can see them working on more music, because the way that subplot ends is Pat says, can you make me some more? And they go, and then they take the gun and he holds the gun up and he's like, yeah, we can make more, but we never see them make more. And the reason we don't see them make more is because that storyline doesn't really have anywhere left to go. We're just gonna see them make more music. That more music appears in the film, and now I realize that we see them occasionally like playing a bit of bass or doing a tiny bit of mixing or whatever. And I love little details like that. You can tell that the people who made this film really cared about the character, about the idea, and about making a good film, right? That felt coherent and strategical, right? It's almost on a level, it's not even, actually, it's not in the same ballpark, but it's in the ballpark next to the ballpark in which the Cornetto trilogy lies. Because the Cornetto trilogy from Edgar Wright is incredibly famous for its extreme amount of detail packed into every single frame, right? There's so many little like in-jokes and ideas and references and callbacks in and of itself that loop back around and all that kind of stuff, and extra plot beats and like things like that. You know, like little answers to various storylines get answered in little details here and there, all that kind of stuff. And so Alan Partridge Alpha Papa does a lot of the same kind of thing. And I think it's really great that it does that. And I think it's a good, solid film, right? And yeah, I would recommend that you watch it if you haven't already. If you have watched it, please leave your thoughts in the comments below about the film. Review it yourself. Do you agree with me? I'm gonna do a numerical score. Why not? 9.5 out of 10. The only thing I don't like is during the third act, there's one quick musical montage bit, and I don't like the song that they play. The whole point of the montage is to show that the public are on Pat Farrell's side, right? But the music is this like boom, clap, early 2010s indie bullshit where they go, hooah, 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 right? And it sounds fucking awful, right? Get rid of that. Get rid of that in a heartbeat, right? But apart from that, it's a 9.5 out of 10. So thank you very much for watching this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you want to see more movies get reviewed? I'm not going to take requests, by the way. It's just whatever movie I happen to see, because I don't watch enough movies, right? I might do, I can't remember which, I think it was Francis Ford Coppola. He did a film about Mars, and it's sort of like, it's his wannabe version of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I wouldn't mind reviewing that, because that was a bit weird and a bit bad. But I'd love to review Moonfall as well. I might do that one. I might not end up doing any of this, so take it as you will. This might be the only review I ever do, so see ya.